Some storms are not weather. Some storms wear suits and call themselves family. The cicadas stopped singing at 4:31 in the afternoon on Saturday, May 11. In Oklahoma, a man who has lived long enough knows what that silence means. The sky turns the color of old bruises. The air tastes like a penny held under the tongue, and the people who pay attention start moving toward the ground. Three figures were moving the wrong direction. A pregnant woman in a Marine Corps khaki shirt that did not belong to her. Two small girls, 10 years old, holding her up between them. One of the girls walked with a soft click at every other step, an orthotic brace that had carried her through 1,000 school days, now carrying her mother across a field of broken fence wire and tornado debris. The other girl had a folded paper in her hand. Paper so worn at the creases it had started to come apart, and a name written on it in her father's careful handwriting. The name on the paper was Wyatt Hollow Reeves. The man behind that name had not opened a letter from his dead brother in 6 days. He was about to open more than that. If this story finds you tonight, stay with me. Some doors only open when the right people knock at the wrong time. The Iron Saints Clubhouse sat at the end of Bottomland Road, 3 miles south of Cedar Falls, Oklahoma. It had been a Dust Bowl grain silo before it became anything else, then a horse barn, then a clubhouse, and underneath the whole property a root cellar bunker from 1934 that had outlived 4 owners, 2 tornadoes, and a wildfire in 1978. Wyatt Reeves sat at the long oak table in the main room. He had been sitting there since 6 out in the morning. His brother's letter was in front of him. 4 pages, folded in thirds, sealed with masking tape, because Jacob had run out of envelopes the night he wrote it. The tape had a smudge of grease at one corner from Jacob's mechanic shop. The smudge was the only thing on the letter that still smelled like him. 6 days unopened. Wyatt was 54 years old. He had served 2 Marine deployments to Helmand, buried a wife who had left him while still alive, and survived a brother who had not. He had earned every gray hair in his beard and the slight stoop in his shoulders. But sitting there in the half-dark clubhouse, staring at a letter, he was 11 years old again. Standing outside his father's bedroom door, knowing what was on the other side and not yet ready to know, a boot scuffed the floorboards behind him. Tornado watch, upgraded to warning. Eli's voice was the same it had always been. Older brother, Iron Saints president, former Navy SEAL, with 3 faded scars on his neck, and a softness in his hands that only showed up when he was holding something small. PDS warning, National Weather Service. Get the bunker ready. Wyatt did not turn around. Ellie walked over and put one hand on the back of his chair, not on his shoulder, the chair. A man who had grown up with too many funerals knew where to touch and where not to. You going to open it today? All right. Ella walked out. The clubhouse pendulum clock on the back wall struck 4, then 4:15, then 4:30. At 4:31, the cicadas outside the open window stopped. Yacht closed his eyes. Anyone raised in Tornado Alley knew that sound, or rather the sudden lack of it. He stood up, slid the letter into the inside pocket of his canvas jacket, and walked out to the porch. The sky had gone the color of an old bruise. The Iron Saints brothers were already moving. Pete Doc Whitfield, the chapter sergeant-at-arms, was guiding Mrs. Edna Pruitt down from her place across the road. Bull Thornton had the radio. Cal Aldridge, the youngest patch holder, was checking the bunker hatch. Marcus Lindbergh, who had once been an Army chaplain, was loading 2 cases of bottled water down the cellar stairs. 4 townspeople had come up the drive in pickup trucks, looking for shelter. The Iron Saints did not ask questions. They never did. Not in tornado season. The bunker had room for 18. Tonight it would hold 13. The siren in Cedar Falls began its slow rising wail. A second siren, closer, mounted on the roof of the clubhouse barn, joined it. The tornado came at 4:47. Watt did not see it touch down. He was in the bunker with the others. By then, the steel hatch sealed, the kerosene lanterns hissing. He could hear it, though. Anyone who has heard a tornado pass directly over a buildings does not forget that sound. It is not wind. It is freight train and breaking glass and something deeper than either, something that feels like the earth itself disapproving. It lasted 40 seconds. Then it was gone. Ellie waited a full minute by the radio before he gave the all clear. Pete unsealed the hatch. They climbed up into a world that smelled like split pine and ozone. The clubhouse was still standing. Most things were not. A grain silo on the east field had been peeled open like a tin can. 2 large oak trees lay across the gravel drive. Bull's pickup truck was on its side near the tree line, the windshield gone. The Pruitt house across the road had lost its roof. Yacht walked out toward the broken fence at the south edge of the property. Doc Whitfield walked with him, 2 paces behind, the way Doc always walked when he was not sure what they were about to find. That is when Wyatt saw them, 200 yards away across the open field. 3 figures, a woman in the middle, hunched over, one hand pressed to her belly, 2 small girls on either side, holding her up. They were moving slowly, deliberately. The way people move when stopping is not an option. Wyatt did not yell. He did not run. He moved at a fast, steady walk, the kind of walk that does not scare a frightened animal. The girls saw him first. The one on the left did not stop. She kept moving, kept pulling her mother forward, eyes locked on Wyatt's chest patch, as if she had been told to look for exactly that. The other girl, slightly behind, had a soft click at every other step. A brace at her left ankle that caught the late afternoon light. When they were 30 feet away, the pregnant woman's knees gave out. Doak was at her side before her shoulder hit the ground. He had her propped against his knee, 2 fingers at her wrist for pulse. The other hand already coming up to her forehead. He did not introduce himself. Medics in a moment like that never do. "Ma'am, my name is Pete. I am a corpsman. You stay with me." The woman's eyes were open but unfocused. There was a long, thin cut along her temple, still bleeding slow. Her hair was full of dust and small bits of glass. The girl with the brace knelt beside her mother. The other girl, the older-seeming one, stood between her family and Wyatt, both hands at her sides, chin slightly up. Her voice was small but did not shake. Wyatt felt something inside his chest stop working for half a second. "Say that again, sweetheart."
Daniel Crane was our daddy.
The girl with the brace on her knees in the grass spoke without looking up. Uncle Jacob saved him. In Afghanistan, with the truck on fire, Wyatt looked at Doc. Doc was already looking back. Pete Whitfield had been in Helmand. He had heard the story. The older twin reached into the pocket of her mother's oversized khaki shirt. She pulled out a folded paper worn soft at the creases, smudged at the corner with what might have been blood, might have been mud. She held it out to Wyatt. He took it. The handwriting on the paper was Daniel Crane's. Wyatt had never seen it before, but he knew it the way you know a man's voice in a song you have not heard. Careful, deliberate. The writing of a man who had been taught to print in block letters by a Marine recruiter and had never quite gone back. Mama said, if we ever needed help, and Daddy wasn't there, we should find the man named Wyatt Hollow Reeves. She'd said you'd know what to do. There was a second line beneath it. She'd said your brother already paid the price. Wyatt's hands did not shake. They went still in a way that was worse than shaking. He folded the paper. He put it in his pocket beside his brother's unopened letter. He crouched down so his face was level with the older twins. "What? Hattie, and your sister? Birdie, she has cerebral palsy on her left side. She walked 1.25 miles to get here. I helped her carry Mama." Wyatt nodded slowly. "You did good, Hattie. I know." The honesty in her voice was so absolute Wyatt almost smiled. He did not. Smiling would have made him cry, and crying was something he could not afford yet. He stood up. Doc was already lifting her mother into a fireman's carry. Bull was running across the field with a stretcher rigged from a barn door and 2 tarps.
Hattie.
"Birdie, we are going to take your mama inside. Doc Whitfield knows what he is doing. You are not going to be alone with strangers. Mrs. Pruitt is in the clubhouse. She is going to sit with you while we take care of your mama. Is that all right?" Hattie considered him. "Are you Wyatt Hollow Reeves?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then it is all right." Doc Whitfield set up his medical room in the old tack stall, the one Bull had converted 3 years ago into a clean white space with a cot, an oxygen tank, a defibrillator, and the kind of supply cabinet a corpsman builds when he has not stopped being a corpsman just because the Navy stopped paying him for it. The pregnant woman lay on the cot with her eyes closed, but not asleep. Her name, Doc had learned in the first minute, was Emma Crane. She was 28 years old, 28 weeks pregnant. Honorably discharged Navy intelligence linguist. She had asked for her dog tags before she had asked for water. Doc had handed them to her. She held them in her closed fist now and did not let go. Dr. Maya Robertson was on her way from Cedar Falls Community Hospital. The roads south of town had been cleared by the highway patrol within an hour of the tornado lifting. She told Doc by radio that Emma's vitals sounded stable. The baby's heart rate, monitored through Doc's portable Doppler, was strong. Wyatt stood in the doorway. He did not enter. Emma opened her eyes. "You are Jacob's brother." "Yes, ma'am." "He came to Daniel's funeral. He stood at the back. He did not introduce himself." "That sounds like Jacob." Emma was quiet for a long moment. "He is dead too, isn't he?" Wyatt did not lie to people in pain. He had stopped doing that a long time ago. 6 days ago. Emma closed her eyes again. A single tear slid down the side of her face into her hair. She did not wipe it. "I am so sorry, Mr. Reeves. Wyatt, you need to rest. Doctor's on her way." "There is a voice recorder in the inside pocket of this shirt. It is Daniel's shirt. The recorder is mine. I need you to take it and keep it safe." Wyatt looked at Doc. Doc nodded once. Wyatt stepped forward, reached carefully into the inside breast pocket of the khaki shirt Emma was wearing, and pulled out a small black device the size of a deck of cards. "Old Navy issue. Linguist's tool. It has 11 recordings on it," Emma said. "They are dated. They are conversations with a man named Reverend Caldwell. He is my husband's first cousin. He is also the senior pastor of a church called Cedar Mountain Fellowship in Tulsa. Your brother knew him. My brother knew a lot of people he did not like. Wyatt, Caldwell is trying to take my children." Wyatt closed his hand around the recorder. "Doc, I am stepping out for 10 minutes. Eli has the floor. Go." Wyatt walked out of the medical room, down the back hallway, past the kitchen, where Hattie and Birdie were sitting at the long table with Mrs. Edna Pruitt, eating peanut butter sandwiches on white bread and drinking milk from glass jars. Mrs. Edna was folding paper into the shape of a crane and showing Birdie how to make the wings. Hattie was watching everything with her chin up and her hands flat on the table. Wyatt did not stop. He walked up the back stairs to his quarters above the clubhouse main room. He shut the door behind him and locked it. Then he sat down on his bed and opened his brother's letter. 4 pages. Jacob's handwriting had always been worse than Daniel's. Slanted, hurried, the writing of a man who thought faster than his hand could move. The pages were ruled notebook paper. The ink in places had been smudged by what might have been sweat and what might have been something else. Wyatt read. "Wyatt, if you are reading this, then I could not finish what I started. I am not writing this because I am about to do anything you would not approve of. I am writing this because I am scared and I am tired, and the thing I am trying to fight has more lawyers than I have brothers. There is a man named Reverend Caldwell at Cedar Mountain Fellowship in Tulsa. He is taking everything from Daniel Crane's widow. He is also taking from elderly members of his own congregation. The total is somewhere north of 2 million. I have proof. Look in my jacket inner left pocket. There is a USB drive. The password is the day Mom died written backwards. You will remember." Wyatt remembered. November 4, 1996. He had been 26 years old. Jacob had been 13. Their mother had died of pancreatic cancer on a Thursday afternoon, and Jacob had not spoken for 4 days afterward. Wyatt kept reading. "Tell Daniel's wife the wedding at Bagram was real, because I was there and I signed the witness paper. Daniel and Emma were married on March 14, 2014, in the small chapel at Bagram Airfield. The chaplain who officiated was Captain Marcus Lindbergh of the United States Army. The witness was me. There were 2 other people in the room. The original signed document is in my safety deposit box at First Cedar Falls Bank, box 247. The key is taped under the 3rd drawer of my workbench in the garage." Wyatt's eyes went still for a moment. He read the next paragraph twice. "Marcus is in your chapter. He has been your chaplain for 9 years. Daniel did not know that the man who married him to Emma was sitting 2 pews behind me at his funeral. I knew. I did not say anything because Daniel was already gone and Emma was already grieving, and the timing was bad. The timing was always bad. I am writing this letter because the timing is going to get worse, and I am not going to be there. Caldwell is going to come for the twins. He is going to come for the baby. He is going to come because the marriage was not registered stateside before Daniel deployed for the last time, and Caldwell has been told by a lawyer that the survivor benefits packet can be redirected through a church trust if the next of kin signs the right papers. He has done this before. 2 other Marine widows. Their names are Erica Foster in California and Lillian Park in North Carolina. Detective Sarah Park in Tulsa knows about both of them. She does not have enough evidence yet. The USB will give her enough. I should have brought this to you a month ago. I am sorry. I thought I could close it myself. I thought if I closed it before it got bad enough, you would not have to know how close it came. I was wrong. If you are reading this, the last thing I need you to do is not blame yourself. Daniel saved my life in Helmand. You saved my life every other day since. You did not fail to save me. I failed to ask. Take care of Emma. Take care of those girls. Take care of the baby when he comes. He is a boy, Emma told me at the funeral. She has not told anyone else. Your brother always. Jacob Wyatt sat with the letter open on his knee for a long time. He did not cry. He had cried 6 days ago, alone in this room, when Doc had called him from Jacob's garage and said the words a man only hears once. He had not cried since. He was not going to cry now. There was time for that later. There was always time for that later. And never enough time for the thing in front of him. He stood up. He walked to the window. Outside, the late afternoon light was the strange post-tornado gold that Oklahoma sometimes makes. After the storm pulls all the dust out of the sky and leaves the air clean. Cal Aldridge was clearing the gravel drive of broken branches. Bull was on his back, under his overturned pickup, checking the axle. Eli was on the porch with his phone to his ear. Wyatt opened the door to his quarters and went down the stairs. He found Eli first. Called Detective Sarah Park, Tulsa County Financial Crimes. Use her direct line. Tell her Jacob's brother is ready to come in. Eli did not ask what for. He had been waiting 6 days for that sentence. Done, Marcus. The Iron Saints chaplain looked up from where he was helping Mrs. Edna stack the bunker supplies. Marcus, you officiated a wedding at Bagram Airfield on March 14, 2014. Marcus Lindbergh was 61 years old. He had been Army chaplain, through 3 tours, and the kind of life that came after. He had a long gray ponytail tied at the back of his neck, gentle eyes, and hands that had not stopped working since he was 12 years old. He looked at Wyatt for a long moment. I officiated 47 weddings at Bagram in my career. Most of them I do not remember in detail, but I remember Sergeant Daniel Crane and Lieutenant Emma Hollis. He was a recon Marine. She was a linguist. They came in with one witness. Your brother. I remember because Daniel asked me afterward to keep a copy of the certificate in case anything ever happened to the original. I have that copy. It is in a file box at my house. I can have it here in an hour. The whole kitchen had gone quiet. Hattie was watching with her hands still flat on the table. Bertie was watching with the paper crane half folded in her lap. Mrs. Edna had stopped moving. Wyatt nodded once. Get it. Marcus stood up and walked out without another word. Wyatt looked at the twins. Your mama and your daddy were married, properly married. The man who married them is one of my brothers. I did not know that until 2 minutes ago. I am going to tell your mama as soon as the doctor finishes with her. Is that all right with you? Hattie's chin did not move. Yes, sir. Bertie set the half-folded paper crane on the table and looked up at him. Mr. Reeves. Yes, ma'am. Uncle Jacob is in the letter, isn't he? Wyatt stopped. It took him a second to understand what she was asking. She was not asking if Jacob was mentioned. She was asking if Jacob was, in a way that her 10-year-old understanding could hold, still present. Yes, ma'am, he is. Bertie nodded slowly and picked up the paper crane again. Outside, on the road that ran past the broken Pruitt house and the downed oak trees, a black Lincoln Navigator slowed at the turnoff to Bottomland Road and stopped. The driver sat for a moment. He did not get out. Then he made a phone call. Detective Sarah Park arrived at the Iron Saints clubhouse at 6:42 in the evening. She did not come in a marked vehicle. She came in a county-issued Ford Explorer, gray, no insignia, and she came alone. She was 41 years old, Korean-American, the daughter of a Tulsa pharmacist, and the granddaughter of a Methodist preacher in Pohang. She had been a financial crimes detective for 9 years. She had been working the Cedar Mountain Fellowship case for 6 months. She parked behind Eli's bike. She got out. She looked at the broken silo, the downed oaks, the pickup truck on its side, and the small crowd of bikers and townspeople moving with quiet purpose to clear debris. She did not ask anyone what had happened. She knew what tornadoes did. Eli met her at the porch. He shook her hand once, firm and short. "Detective, President Reeves, my brother gave you my number. 6 months ago. He said if you ever called, I should drop whatever I was doing. He kept his word about a lot of things." He did. Eli held the door open for her. Inside the clubhouse, the long oak table had been cleared. Mrs. Edna Pruitt had set out a coffee pot and 4 ceramic mugs without asking. Dalton Mercer, the chapter's tech and treasurer, had a laptop open at the far end of the table with a small hard drive cable already plugged in. Wyatt stood when Park entered. He did not offer her a handshake. He offered her the letter, the USB drive, and the voice recorder. She accepted all 3 with both hands. "Thank you, Mr. Reeves." "Wyatt, I need you to walk me through everything in the order it happened." He did. While he talked, Dalton plugged the USB into his laptop, entered the password from Jacob's letter, and began running file integrity checks. Park listened without interrupting, took notes with a felt-tip pen on a small spiral pad, and did not look at her phone once. When Wyatt finished, she set the pen down. "Mr. Reeves, your brother built me a case I could not build for myself in 6 months. We are going to be ready by morning. I would like to speak with Mrs. Crane now, with your permission and hers."
Wyatt walked back to the medical room. "Doctor."
Maya Robertson had arrived 20 minutes earlier. She was a woman in her late 40s, OB-GYN, the only physician in 3 counties who still made house calls on Saturday nights. And she had known Daniel Crane since high school. She did not speak when Wyatt entered. She finished checking Emma's blood pressure, made a notation on her clipboard, and gave Wyatt a single nod that meant the mother and the baby were both going to be all right. Emma was sitting up. She had been changed into a clean cotton hospital gown. Doc kept in his supply cabinet. Her hair had been washed. Her dog tags and Daniel's silver cross both hung against the gown. "Detective Park is here," Wyatt said. "She is ready when you are." Emma nodded once. Hattie, Birdie. The twins were sitting on 2 folding chairs against the wall, holding hands. "Sweetheart, the detective is going to talk to Mama for a little while. Mr. Reeves is going to be here. Doc is going to be here. Mrs. Pruitt is going to take you back to the kitchen for some more sandwiches. Is that all right?" Hattie answered for both of them. "Yes, Mama." Birdie stood up and walked over to her mother's cot. She put one small hand on top of Emma's hand on her belly. Then she pressed her cheek against Emma's hand for a moment. Then she turned and walked out with Hattie behind her. Mrs. Edna waiting in the hallway. The 3 of them disappeared toward the kitchen, and the soft click Birdie's brace faded into the sound of the wind outside. Park entered the medical room. She did not sit. She knelt on one knee beside the cot so her face was below Emma's. "Mrs. Crane, I am Sarah. I want you to know that nothing tell me tonight will be used against you. I know about the marriage at Bagram. I know about your husband. I am very sorry for your loss." Emma's hand closed around the silver cross. "There are 11 recordings. I have the recorder. He came to my house 31 days after Daniel died. He brought a casserole. He said it was from the church. He said Daniel had asked him before the last deployment to look in on me if anything happened. He had not. Daniel did not trust him. Daniel told me once that his cousin had the kind of smile that made him want to count his fingers afterward." Park nodded. "He started coming every week, then every 3 days. He started bringing forms. He said the survivor benefits packet was complicated, and that he had a lawyer at the church who could fast-track it. He said I should sign over power of attorney for the financial portion. He said the church would manage the trust for the girls and the baby. He said it was what Daniel would have wanted. Emma's voice did not shake. The words were rehearsed, not because she was lying, but because she had been waiting 4 months to say them to someone who would write them down. I asked him to leave. He did. He came back the next day. He brought a new lawyer this time. He said the legal marriage stateside was incomplete, and that meant the next of kin for the military benefits was, by default, the closest blood relative. He said that was him. He said he was the only one who could protect the girls. Park wrote, I started recording on the 3rd visit. I did not tell him. I am a trained linguist. I know when a man is reading from a script. He was reading from a script. The script had been used before. It had. I have spoken to 2 other Marine widows in the past 4 months who heard the same script almost word for word. Their husbands' insurance and survivor benefits were redirected through it through a church trust 2 weeks after burial. Both women are now living below poverty line. One is in California. One is in North Carolina. Neither knew about the other until I introduced them 3 weeks ago. Emma closed her eyes. Erica Foster, Lillian Park. Yes, your brother told me their names in the letter. He said you would have them. Your brother contacted me on January 14 of this year. He asked me to meet him at a coffee shop in Tulsa. He brought me a list of names, dates, amounts, and a request that I keep his involvement off the record until he could deliver the proof. He delivered the proof 6 days ago, in a way none of us wanted. The room was quiet for a moment. Dalton's voice came through the door. Wyatt, you need to see this, yes? Wyatt looked at Park. Park nodded. Go, Mrs. Crane and I will continue. Wyatt walked into the main room. Dalton had the USB drive open. The screen showed a folder structure, 47 subfolders, bank statements, wire transfer records, donation logs, email exports, audio recordings, photographs of paper documents taken by phone in what appeared to be a church office at night. Wyatt, your brother was working on this for at least 9 months. The earliest file is dated September of last year. The most recent is dated 4 days before he died. Show me the names. Dalton clicked. A spreadsheet opened. 3 columns. Names, amounts, dates. Cynthia Hartwell, $87,000, April 2022. Robert and Janet Mills, $145,000, June 2023. Lopez family, $40,000 debt resulting, August 2023. Pastor Dale Thomas estate, $312,000, November 2022. 11 other names Wyatt did not recognize, in amounts ranging from $4,200 to $96,000. Total at the bottom in red, $2,307,040. Jesus Christ, Bull said softly. He had walked in without anyone noticing. There is one more file, Dalton said. Your brother labeled it read this one last. He clicked it. A video opened, 47 seconds long. Jacob's face filled the screen. He was sitting in his garage, the workbench behind him, his face lit by a single hanging bulb. He looked tired. He looked sober. He looked like a man who had been awake too long, but his voice was steady. Wyatt, if Detective Park is watching this with you, it means I did not finish what I started, and it means you did. Thank you. Tell Emma the wedding was real. Tell the girls Uncle Jacob is sorry he could not come to their birthday this year. Tell Cal he was going to be a damn fine patch holder. Tell Eli I knew he was waiting for me to ask for help. And I should have. Tell Mom and Dad when you see them that I tried. I love you, brother. Roll on. The video ended. Wyatt did not speak for a moment. Bull was looking at the floor. Dalton had his hands flat on the table. Wyatt nodded once. Email me a copy, encrypted. I want it before anything else gets sent anywhere. Already done. Wyatt walked back to the medical room. Park was finishing a sentence. Emma was holding the silver cross in both hands. Detective, there is a video. You should see it. Park stood, after Mrs. Crane is ready. Emma opened her hand. I am ready. Wyatt stayed. The three of them watched it together in Doc's medical room, with Dalton's laptop balanced on a rolling cart. When it ended, Emma did not cry. She closed her eyes and said one sentence in a voice so quiet, it nearly disappeared. He came to the funeral and he did not introduce himself because he did not want to make me feel obligated. Park said, he was a good man, Mrs. Crane. I know. Outside, the radio on Doc's belt crackled. It was Cal Aldridge from the front gate. Wyatt, we have got a black Lincoln Navigator at the end of Bottomland Road. Same vehicle as before. Driver is sitting in the car. He has not approached. He has been there for 40 minutes. Wyatt looked at Park. Detective, tell him to hold position. Have the deputy unit move up. I want eyes on the vehicle, but no contact. He is not coming inside this property tonight. Wyatt keyed his own radio. Cal, hold position. Doc Crockett is en route. Do not engage. Copy. Park turned back to Emma, Mrs. Crane. There is one more thing I need to ask, before the night gets longer. Your daughter, Birdie, the older twin Hattie, Mr. Reeves mentioned that one of them may have overheard a conversation. Emma nodded slowly. 3 weeks ago. Caldwell was at our kitchen table. Hattie went to her room. Birdie was in the hallway with her brace off, sitting on the floor with a book. He did not see her. He took a phone call. It lasted 6 minutes and 23 seconds. Birdie does not forget what she hears. May I speak with her? You will need to ask her yourself. She decides who she talks to. That was something her father taught her. Wyatt walked to the kitchen. Mrs. Edna was reading aloud from an old copy of Charlotte's Web. Hattie was leaning against her shoulder. Birdie was at the end of the table, folding her paper crane. Wyatt crouched down beside Birdie's chair. Sweetheart, the detective who came to help your mama wants to talk to you. She wants to ask you about a conversation you heard 3 weeks ago. Your mama said you get to decide if you want to talk to her or not. Birdie set the paper crane carefully on the table. The wings were almost finished. She looked at Wyatt for a long moment. Mr. Reeves. Yes, ma'am. Will she write it down? She will. Then I will tell her. I do not want it to live in my head anymore. Wyatt felt the room narrow. He stood up. He held out his hand. Birdie took it. They walked together back to the medical room. The soft click of Care's race on the wooden floor, the only sound in the hallway. Birdie sat in the folding chair next to her mother's cot. She did not look at Wyatt. She did not look at Park. She looked at the ceiling. Then in a small, even voice, she recited, My contact at the Marines Benefits Office can fast-track the survivor packet. We just need her to sign the trust papers. The twins are the only legal heirs anyway, since the marriage isn't legally recorded stateside. I'll have it done by August before the baby is born. The Hartwell money is already moved. Mills signed next week. The audit committee won't catch it if we keep the deposits under $12,000. Yes. Yes. I understand. No, she is fragile. She is grateful. She will sign. I will make sure of that. Birdie stopped. That is everything he said. There were pauses where the other person talked, but I could not hear him. Park was writing. Her pen had not stopped. Birdie. How long did the call last? 6 minutes and 23 seconds. The microwave clock said 4:11 when it started and 4:17 when it ended. 23 seconds is what was left on the popcorn timer. Park set the pen down. She looked at Birdie for a long moment. You are a remarkable young woman. I am 10. I know. Outside, the tornado siren began to wail again. A second supercell had formed in the same warm front. The National Weather Service was calling it an EF2. It was heading directly toward the Iron Saints clubhouse. The bunker hatch opened at 7:23 in the evening. The second tornado had passed 3 miles east of the clubhouse. Missing the property by a margin, no one wanted to measure too precisely. Inside the root cellar, 13 people had counted the seconds. When Eli unsealed the hatch and the warm, wet smell of post-storm Oklahoma rolled down the stairs, no one cheered. They climbed back up and looked at a sky that had gone bruised purple at the edges and pale gold in the middle. The way Oklahoma skies do after a supercell has spent itself. Wyatt was first out. He walked to the porch railing and looked east down Bottomland Road. The Lincoln Navigator was still there. 40 minutes had become almost 2 hours. The driver had not moved. Wyatt keyed his radio. Cal, status. He has not approached, boss. Deputy Crockett is on his blocker position at the highway turn. 2 more deputy units inbound. The driver made 1 phone call about 20 minutes ago. He is alone in the vehicle. Hold. Wyatt walked back inside. Emma was at the long oak table now, sitting in Eli's usual chair, a blanket around her shoulders, a mug of weak tea in front of her. The twins were on either side. Doctor. Robertson had cleared her to be out of the medical room for short periods. Mrs. Edna stood behind Emma, with one hand resting lightly on the back of the chair. Marcus Lindbergh had returned 20 minutes ago with a manila folder. The folder sat on the table, unopened, between Emma's hands. Wyatt looked at Park. He is going to come up the drive. Do we let him? Park considered. He is not under arrest. The federal warrants will not be signed until tomorrow morning at the earliest. We can detain him for questioning if he steps onto private property, but if he stays on the road, we have no cause to hold him. Then let him come. Park nodded. Mrs. Crane, you do not have to be present for this. Emma's hands closed around the manila folder Marcus had brought. My husband was real. My marriage was real. My daughter just recited a conversation that man had 3 weeks ago. If I am not present, he wins this hour. Wyatt looked at the twins. Hattie answered before he could ask. We stay with Mama. Bertie nodded once. Wyatt walked to the porch and keyed his radio. Cal, tell him the road is clear. He has 5 minutes. 2 minutes later, the navigator started its engine. It rolled slowly up Bottomland Road, past Cal's position at the gate, and parked 30 yards from the porch. The engine cut. The door opened. Reverend Caldwell stepped out. He was 49 years old, 6 feet tall, blonde hair gone slightly silver at the temples, rimless titanium glasses, a navy polo tucked into pressed khakis. His shoes were leather loafers that had been wiped clean of tornado dust before he got out of the vehicle. He looked like a man who had stopped to comb his hair in the rearview mirror before approaching. He raised both hands, waist high, palms forward, the universal gesture of a man who knows he is being watched by other men, with reasons not to trust him. Brothers, I am not armed. I am here as family. Wyatt stood on the porch with Eli on his left and Pete Whitfield on his right. The other Saints brothers were positioned in the open spaces of the property, without making it look like a perimeter. Bull was near his overturned pickup. Reese Hardy was near the south fence. Cal was at the gate. Dalton was inside with the laptop. Marcos stood just inside the front doorway. The chaplain, whose signature was inside that manila folder. Caldwell walked up the gravel drive slowly. His shoes crunched. He stopped at the bottom step of the porch. Wyatt, I am so very sorry about your brother. Jacob was struggling. The trauma of his service never left him. Wyatt did not respond. Caldwell shifted his weight. I came because I heard Emma might be here. After the tornado. I am the only family she has left who can help her through this. I have legal documents drafted. A survivor support package. The military benefits system is broken, brothers. The Department of Defense has been failing widows for 50 years. I can help. Eli spoke for the first time. Pastor Caldwell, we are aware of what you can do for Sister Emma. Caldwell tilted his head 1 degree. It was the smallest possible recalculation, but Wyatt saw it. Mrs. Edna Pruitt stepped out of the doorway and walked past Wyatt to the top of the porch steps. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Pastor Caldwell, you do not know me. Ma'am, I am sure I have met you at a community function. You have not. I am Edna Pruitt. I worked the books for Cedar Falls First Methodist Church for 38 years. I retired in 2019. Detective Park drove out to my house this morning at 6 and showed me a spreadsheet. I read it twice. I told her what every line meant. I told her where the audit committee would have caught it if your audit committee not run by your brother-in-law. I told her where the IRS would have caught it if you had not been keeping deposits under the federal reporting threshold. Caldwell's face did a very small thing. It did not break. It did not flinch. It simply did not move for 1 full second longer than it should have. Mrs. Pruitt, there may be irregularities in church accounts. I have been investigating those myself. I plan to bring them to authorities. Son, I am 71 years old. I have heard better lies from drunk men at funerals. Detective Park stepped out from the doorway. Caldwell saw her. His mouth opened. His mouth closed. Reverend Caldwell, my name is Detective Sarah Park, Tulsa County Financial Crimes. We have your encrypted spreadsheet. We have the LLC paperwork for the 3 shell companies. We have your wire transfer records going back to September of 2022. We have audio recordings of 11 conversations between you and Mrs. Crane. We have the original signed witness paper from her wedding at Bagram, dated March 14, 2014. The chaplain, who officiated that wedding, is standing inside this house. His signature on the certificate matches his signature on his Army discharge papers. I checked an hour ago. Caldwell's hands is lowered slowly. Detective, I would like to call my attorney. You are absolutely welcome to. You are not yet under arrest. You are, however, officially a person of interest in a federal investigation that includes RICO, wire fraud, mail fraud, and elder financial exploitation. The federal warrants will be signed in the morning. I am here to inform you of that courtesy. Your attorney can meet us at the Tulsa County Sheriff's Office at 9. Elder? Cynthia Hartwell, Robert and Janet Mills, the Lopez family, the Thomas estate. I spoke to each of them, or their executors this morning. None of them were surprised. Caldwell's mouth opened slightly. He did not speak. Then Emma walked out onto the porch. She moved slowly, one hand on the doorframe, the other on her belly. Hattie was on her right. Birdie was on her left, her brace clicking softly on the wooden boards. Marcus Lindbergh followed 3 steps behind, the manila folder in his hand. Emma stopped at the top step. Caldwell looked up at her. His face arranged itself into the practiced kindness of 1,000 Sunday services. Sister Emma, you do not understand. The world is going to hurt you. The church can shelter you. Daniel would have wanted me to take care of you and the girls. You know that. Please, Emma's voice was level, not loud, not soft. The voice of a Navy intelligence linguist who had spent 8 years reading interrogation transcripts and knew exactly what a script sounded like. Reverend Caldwell, my husband's brother Jacob, signed our marriage witness paper at Bagram Chapel on March 14, 2014. Jacob's signature is in your church's incorporation documents because he served on Cedar Mountain's audit committee for 11 months before he died. The signatures match. Detective Park will testify to that. My daughter Birdie just recited a conversation she heard you have 3 weeks ago. Word for word, 6 minutes and 23 seconds. Detective Park has copies of all of it. Caldwell's eyes moved to Birdie. Birdie looked back at him. She did not flinch. She did not look away. She looked at him the way a child looks at someone she has already finished understanding. Caldwell turned his eyes back to Emma. Emma, I did not come here for this. You came here because the tornado tore the roof off my house, and you thought I would be alone. I am not. I have never been. I just did not know it until today. Marcus Lindbergh stepped forward and opened the manila folder. He held up a single document, a laminated copy of a chapel certificate, the seal of the Army Chaplain Corps in the top corner. 2 signatures at the bottom. One was Marcus's, in 2014 ink, faded but legible. The other was Jacob's. Pastor Caldwell. Marcus said, I officiated this wedding. The certificate is in evidence with the detective. The witness is dead. The chaplain is alive. The marriage is legal. The widow is not your responsibility. She never was. A second vehicle pulled up Bottomland Road, a gray Honda Accord. It parked behind the Navigator without blocking it. The driver's door opened. Whitney Caldwell stepped out. She was 44 years old, slight, with brown hair cut short, and a face that had been crying recently and recently before that. She walked up the drive without looking at her husband. She climbed the porch steps. She handed a thick manila envelope directly to Detective Park. I have been keeping a separate copy for 4 months. Audit committee documents, bank statements, photographs of 2 ledgers he keeps at home. I am ready to give a full statement. Tonight, if you have a place where I can do that. I am not going home. Park took the envelope. Mrs. Caldwell. Whitney, he does not get my name anymore. She turned. She walked past Caldwell without slowing. She got back into the Honda. She drove away. Caldwell watched her taillights disappear down Bottomland Road. When he turned back to face the porch, his mouth was open slightly, and one hand had drifted up to adjust his glasses. A small, unconscious gesture his press-trained body had not been able to suppress. Wyatt looked over his left shoulder. 3 Iron Saints brothers had their phones out, recording quietly. Mrs. Pruitt's grandson who had come up the drive 10 minutes ago to check on his grandmother, had his out, too. Doc Crockett, the deputy at the gate, had his body camera on, which was standard practice. 5 different recordings of the same 15 minutes. By midnight, one of them would be on Facebook. By Sunday morning, the most watched version would have 47,000 views. By Monday afternoon, Patty Eldridge from the Tulsa World would have the lead story. But all that came later. Right now, Caldwell stood on the gravel drive of the Iron Saints clubhouse with the Manila certificate in front of him, his wife driving away behind him, and a 10-year-old girl looking down at him from the porch with an expression that contained no anger, no fear, and no mercy. He cleared his throat. "Detective, I would like to leave now." "You are free to leave, Reverend Caldwell. We will see you at 9 in the morning. Drive safely. There are still downed power lines on Route 11. Caldwell turned. He walked back to the navigator. He did not slip on the gravel, but it took him longer to reach the door than it should have. He climbed in. He started the engine. He drove down Bottomland Road slowly, past the broken Pruitt house, past Cal at the gate, past Deputy Crockett's vehicle, until the taillights disappeared around the bend. Emma stood on the porch a moment longer. Then she felt Wyatt's hand at the small of her back. Not pushing, not pulling, just there. She turned and walked back inside. Hattie followed. Bertie followed. Marcus, Park, and Mrs. Edna followed. Behind them on the porch railing, Cal Aldridge stood with his phone still recording. He stopped the video. He saved it. He texted it to himself, to Eli, to Wyatt, and to a backup cloud account. Then he opened the Iron Saints Cedar Falls Facebook page. He uploaded it. The caption was 4 words: "Brothers protect their family." By Sunday morning, the Facebook video had 47,000 views. Cal Aldridge had not slept. He had stayed at the clubhouse until 4 a.m., watching the share count climb. Eli told him at 3 to go home. Cal did not go home. He sat on the porch with a coffee and watched the dawn come up over a tornado-broken landscape that looked older than it had the day before. By 6 a.m., the video had 68,000 views. By 9 a.m., Reverend Caldwell did not show up at the Tulsa County Sheriff's Office. Detective Park did not seem surprised. She had stationed deputies at the parsonage overnight. Caldwell had not gone home. By 11 a.m., his Lincoln Navigator had been located at a Motel 6 in Joplin, Missouri, 200 miles east. By 1 p.m., he had been taken into federal custody by the FBI Tulsa field office on a fugitive warrant. He did not resist. He asked for his attorney. The attorney did not return his calls until Monday. On Sunday afternoon, Whitney Caldwell sat with Detective Park for 6 hours at the sheriff's office. She gave a sworn statement. She handed over a second flash drive she had hidden in a kitchen drawer behind a stack of cookbooks. She also handed over a journal she had been keeping since January, in which she had documented 43 specific conversations she had overheard her husband having on his phone, with names, dates, and approximate amounts. By Monday morning, Patty Eldridge of the Tulsa World published the lead article above the fold. The headline read, "Megachurch Pastor Indicted in $2 million fraud scheme targeting military widows and elderly members." The photo was Daniel Crane in dress blues, the official portrait the Marine Corps had released after his death. Emma and the twins were not named or pictured. Jacob was named only as the deceased brother of Iron Saints. Chapter Vice President Wyatt Reeves, whose investigation provided the financial documentation. By Monday afternoon, a federal grand jury convened in Tulsa. By Tuesday morning, Caldwell was indicted on 23 counts. By Wednesday morning, he had been arraigned, denied bail, and remanded to federal custody pending trial. The whole thing took 96 hours from the moment Cal hit upload. But that is not the part of the story Wyatt would remember most. What Wyatt would remember most happened on Tuesday at 11 a.m. at the First Cedar Falls Bank. He drove there, alone in his pickup, with Detective Park in the passenger seat. The drive was 19 minutes. They did not speak for most of it. Park was a woman who understood when silence was a courtesy. Inside the bank, the safety deposit box manager was a man named Howard Beltrain, who had known Jacob Reeves for 31 years. Howard did not speak when Wyatt presented the key and the death certificate and the legal documentation. He simply led them to the vault, unlocked the gate, and walked away to let them have the room. Box 247 was on the third shelf from the bottom. Wyatt slid it out. Inside was a single manila envelope and a smaller white envelope. The manila envelope was thick. Wyatt opened it first. Inside was the original Bagram wedding certificate, sealed in plastic, signed by Chaplain Marcus Lindbergh in March 2014 and witnessed by Corporal Jacob Reeves. Detective Park took it with gloved hands and slid it into an evidence bag. The white envelope was addressed in Jacob's handwriting for Emma Crane. Read after Caldwell case closes. Wyatt looked at Park. That is not legally evidence. Take it. Give it to her when she is ready. Wyatt put the envelope in his jacket pocket. On the front, poor Baksh with Hattie and Birdie playing checkers at the small table behind her, playing checkers at the small white envelope. Inside was a folded check made payable to a trust for the Crane children, drawn on Jacob's personal life insurance policy. The amount was $75,000. Beside the check was a handwritten note on the same notebook paper as Jacob's letter to Wyatt. Emma read it once. Then she read it again. Then she handed it to Wyatt without speaking. The note said this: Emma, Daniel asked me at his last home leave to set this aside in case anything ever happened to him. He said you would refuse it because you are too proud. To tell you, the money is not for you. It is for the girls and the baby. He said you would understand the difference. Daniel did not know. I had a brother who would understand a situation like this. I should have told him. I should have told Wyatt. I am sorry I did not. Take care of yourself. Take care of those kids. You and Daniel built something good. Do not let any man take it from you. Jacob. Wyatt read the note twice. He folded it carefully. He handed it back to Emma. She put it in the pocket of the cotton dress Mrs. Edna had loaned her. Wyatt. Yes, ma'am. Will you take me to where Jacob is buried? Yes. He drove her there that evening with Hattie and Birdie in the back seat. The Cedar Falls Cemetery was small. Jacob's headstone was new, granite, simple. United States Marine Corps. Corporal. Beloved son, brother, husband, father. Emma stood at the grave for a long time. Then she set Daniel's silver cross on top of the headstone, then took it back, then held it in her closed fist. He saved my husband. He saved my children. He saved a baby he will never meet. She turned to Wyatt. I want to name him Jacob. Wyatt nodded. Daniel would have wanted Daniel in there somewhere too. Jacob Daniel Crane. That is a good name, ma'am. Birdie tugged Wyatt's sleeve. Mr. Reeves. Yes, ma'am. Can I leave Uncle Jacob a paper crane? Yes, sweetheart. He would have liked that. She placed it carefully on the headstone next to where the silver cross had been. The paper crane was the same one she had been folding at the kitchen table on Saturday afternoon. The wings were finished now. That same week, on Thursday morning, Erica Foster flew in from San Diego and Lillian Park drove down from Camp Lejeune. The three Marine widows met for the first time in Mrs. Edna Pruitt's kitchen. They sat at her table for 6 hours. They drank coffee. They cried twice and laughed once. Mrs. Edna fed them sandwiches and did not interrupt. By the end of the afternoon, they had agreed to form a foundation. They named it on a paper napkin, the Daniel Crane Foundation for Military Family Financial Protection. Lillian Park was a former JJ paralegal. She knew how to file the paperwork. Erica Foster had a master's in public administration. She knew how to write grant applications. Emma was a Navy intelligence linguist. She knew how to read a contract for what was hiding underneath. Detective Park sat in for the last hour as an informal advisor. She suggested the foundation focus on first 12 months after KIA notification, when widows were most vulnerable to predators like Caldwell. The three women agreed. On Friday evening, Cedar Falls First Methodist Church held an additional memorial service for Sergeant Daniel Crane. His body had been returned from Niger in March and buried with full military honors. But Emma had not been strong enough then to do more than stand at the drives and hold the twins' hands. This time she stood at the front of the small church, with hers on her belly and her daughters beside her, and said 3 things into the microphone. She said Daniel had been the best man she had ever known. She said his brother Jacob had been the second best. She said the third best was sitting in the third pew on the left side of the church. wearing a leather vest with no club patches and a face that did not know it was being praised. The Iron Saints filled the back 4 rows of the church. They sat in silence. They listened, and when Reverend Marcus Lindbergh, who had married Daniel and Emma at Bagram Airfield 11 years before, stood up to give the closing words, he did not preach. He simply said this. Daniel Crane saved a corpsman in Helmand in 2010. That corpsman saved 3 women and 7 children in 2024. Brotherhood does not end at the grave. It only changes hands. Then he sat down. The church was quiet. Outside, the cicadas were singing again. 14 months later, on a hot July morning in Cedar Falls, Oklahoma, Wyatt Reeves carried a 13-month-old boy on his hip and a backpack in his free hand. The boy's name was Jacob Daniel Crane. He had Daniel's mouth and Emma's eyes and a thatch of dark hair that stuck up in 3 directions, no matter how many times anyone tried to smooth it down. He was small for 13 months because he had come 2 weeks early, the night of the second tornado, on the floor of Doc Whitfield's medical room, with Dr. Maya Robertson on the radio talking everyone through it. He weighed 7 pounds, 2 ounces at birth. He weighed 22 pounds now. He was laughing. Wyatt walked him out onto the porch of the small 3-bedroom house the Iron Saints had built on the south end of Eli Reeves's land. The house had a metal roof, a storm shelter underneath the kitchen, and a porch that faced west toward the Mission Mountains, which were not visible from Cedar Falls, but which Emma said she could see in her mind anyway. Hattie was sitting on the porch, railing, wearing a Cedar Falls Junior Storm Spotters t-shirt and a yellow ball cap with the brim pulled low. She was 11 now. She had let her hair grow out and was teaching herself how to braid it without a mirror. Birdie was beside her cherry red dirt bike with a wrench in her hand and her brace loose at her ankle. She had grown 3 inches in 14 months. Her cerebral palsy on her left side had not gone away, but the physical therapy paid for by the Daniel Crane Foundation had given her enough strength to handle the bike on flat ground. She still wore the brace, but she did not wear it every day. Cal Aldridge stood in the yard with a second wrench and a grin. Ms. Crane, the throttle cable is twisted again. Tell her she has to listen for the click. I have told her 3 times.
Tell her once more.
Cal laughed and crouched down beside Birdie. Emma came out of the kitchen with 2 glasses of iced tea. She handed one to Wyatt. She took the boy from his hip with the easy familiarity of a mother whose child had been passed around so many leather laps in his first year that he barely noticed which arms held him. She kissed the top of his head. He is teething again, Mrs. Edna gave us a frozen washcloth. That woman is going to outlive us all. She told me yesterday she plans to. Emma sat down in one of the porch rockers. Wyatt sat in the other. They did not speak for a while. They watched Cal show Birdie how to tighten the throttle cable. They watched Hattie braid her hair. They watched Jacob Daniel reach for a moth that had landed on the porch railing and miss by 3 feet. The Daniel Crane Foundation had helped 67 military widows in its first 12 months. Emma had hired 1 full-time staffer in May. Lillian Park flew in from North Carolina every other month for board meetings. Erica Foster, the West Coast office from her dining room in San Diego. They had received 2 federal grants, 1 corporate donation from a Tulsa bank that wanted to fix its reputation. After a 2019 scandal nobody could remember anymore, and a quiet anonymous gift of $200,000 from a donor whose name was not on the paperwork, but whose handwriting Wyatt recognized. Reverend Daniel Caldwell was serving 41 years at a federal facility in Texarkana. Cedar Mountain Fellowship Church had dissolved its corporate entity 10 months ago. $1.8 million had been returned to its defrauded members through court-ordered restitution. The building had been sold to a Methodist congregation that had been meeting in a school gymnasium for 6 years and finally had a home. Whitney Caldwell had moved to Albuquerque. She ran a small worship ministry there now, at a different denomination. With 30 members and no money flowing through any account, she did not personally audit weekly. Marcus Lindbergh had baptized Jacob Daniel Crane at Cedar Falls First Methodist Church 3 months ago. Wyatt had stood as godfather. The papers were not legal adoption, but the role was understood by every adult in the room, and every child, too. Cal Aldridge had been patched in as a full member of the Iron Saints 6 weeks earlier. He had cried at the ceremony, the first one he had ever cried at, and no one had said a word about it. The cicadas were singing. Emma looked over at Wyatt. My husband would have liked this. He would have liked you. I would have liked him. She did not say what she said next right away. She said it. After Birdie's dirt bike started up with a clean rumble, and Cal stood up and gave her a thumbs up, and the boy laughed at the sound, and Hattie called out, "Yes," from the porch railing. Then Emma said, "Some storms are not weather, Wyatt." Wyatt looked at her. She was watching her children. Some storms are not weather. Some storms wear suits and call themselves family. Yes, ma'am. And some men, after the storm passes, do not leave. They build. Wyatt did not answer for a long moment. Then he reached over, without looking at her, and squeezed her hand once, lightly, and let go. Yes, ma'am. Inside, on the wall above the kitchen sink, there was a small framed paper crane. Birdie had folded 14 months ago at Mrs. Edna Pruitt's kitchen table. Above it, on a small brass plate, were 4 words. Brotherhood does not end. If this story found you, tonight, share it with someone who has been told to be grateful when they should have been protected. Drop your city or state in the comments below. And remember, the man who shows up after the storm without asking anything in return is the man who was already family. He just had not been introduced yet.